All right. Here's another question. How might technology help users in China get around censorship? This is from Amanda Florian, who's a young China watcher, maybe in China. Obviously, she says, we're seeing many online users writing code when posting on Weibo and WeChat. What do you think will come next for young people who seem to have become a lot more politically vocal? Can they use technology to their advantage?
I think so far in the country, it seems like the authorities definitely have a better access to these kind of technologies than the individuals. But maybe there are more people having more awareness of what the government is capable of doing. And because of the censorship and surveillance is so harsh, and we are seeing creative ways to dodge it. It's hard to say how much they can dodge it. We're for example, using codes and memes on this Chinese social media may be efficient to get around censorship. But you also, the cost is can you effectively express what you want to express? Paul, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, Muyi and I wrote a story about this overnight, that, this is kind of an old technology, and it's maybe a little, it's not that exciting to talk about, but VPNs that get around the Great Firewall.
VPN, virtual private networks, right?
Yes, yeah. So it's an old debate, and there's been a long cat and mouse game with censors trying to block these things. But what's interesting is when you have protests that are more widespread, and when the anger grows to the levels that it's at right now, we see a lot of people who wouldn't normally get on a VPN but know how to do it get on. And when they do, what we're seeing in particular now is that a lot of the video footage that's taken from the protests has been sent to people who have these kind of, repository accounts on Twitter, who then post it on Twitter. And so A, it spreads it to the world, but B, it becomes a resource for other Chinese who are able to use VPNs and jump the firewall too. And so they can then take those videos, download them themselves, record them themselves, and then pass them around their own chat groups. So what you end up getting is almost like a library that sits outside of the firewall of all the videos you need to, you might want to show what's going on. And then, Chinese people can go access that and send it to their friends. And so it's become much harder for the censors to stop the spread of these videos, because so many people are going outside of the firewall to get it and then sending it to their friends who are still, in the firewall and can't get out. And so a simple technology like that we've seen, we thought I think the censors had very well kind of beaten back and hadn't really seemed a major threat. In a moment like this, when everybody's desperate for information, all of a sudden becomes a real more formidable opponent, and a way that actually is defeating of the censors, and has led to a lot of, them to struggle to stop the spread of these videos. So there are things like that as well that you can do. And some of the other, workarounds for video in particular is difficult for censors to deal with, partially because the algorithms, the computer vision algorithms that would go through it need to be trained specifically for any given, issue. So this particular protest has its own visuals, and you'd have to train a new algorithm to look for video that does that, and that's expensive and takes time. And therefore, humans have to check video a lot of times, even after they've been, the videos have been screened by an AI software. And to trick the AI software, doing things like turning the video on its side, putting a filter on top of it. Sometimes people will embed the video within a video. So, one time a couple months ago, we saw one where it's SpongeBob SquarePants and SpongeBob on his computer in the back of the Krusty Krab. And then in that animated computer screen, they take the video that they want to spread and they put it there so that people can still see it. And that makes it a lot harder for the algorithms to sort of track things. Also editing different videos together. So you start the video with something anodyne, and then after 30 seconds, switch to the video that you want to spread. All these tricks are working. And so that kind of cat and mouse game with the censors continues. And, as the technology gets more sophisticated, people find new ways to do it. It's not uncommon now to see scribble on images going around WeChat, because people just scribble a little bit because that throws off the image recognition algorithms. And so, we're sort of, that's the world we're in at this point.
We're in the world of tricking algorithms. I was surprised.
Yeah, exactly,
I was able to find video online of the BBC correspondent being beaten in Shanghai. That was posted online. It was very, very visible. And so I was surprised by that.
There's one thing I want to add, which is that, while theoretically, the authorities have like access to all kinds of data that's in China, but it is also, they will also consider if it's worth it to, track everyone. Like, they have their priority list. So for example, sometimes what people do to protect themselves is not, it's like instead of using WeChat, that everything is so exposed to in front of authorities, they might, step back and use, iMessage, which is something that you don't necessarily need to use VPN, or like FaceTime, things like that. And not that China don't have access to that. We are not sure, but that it raised bar for them. It's not as easy for the Chinese authorities to track information there as they track information on WeChat. And then they might not spend that much amount of energy to track someone that they don't see as a priority. But for people they do see as a priority target, they do have like, endless amount of resources to track down people.